On an evening in 1975, a woman was watching television in her apartment when an intruder broke into her home. Tragically, she was sexually assaulted and left unconscious, but not before she could burn the image of her attacker into her mind. When the woman came to, she reported the incident to the police and identified her attacker as a person named Donald M. Thompson. The police followed up this lead the next day and apprehended Thompson. However, Thompson had an airtight alibi during the time of the attack. You see, Thompson was a psychologist, and at the time of the attack, he was given a publicly televised lecture. It turns out that prior to the attack, the victim was actually watching Dr. Thompson on TV. Somehow, she had completely misremembered the events of her assault and was convinced that Dr. Thompson was her assailant. So, how does something like this happen? How can a memory be so wrong, yet at the same time wholeheartedly believed by the owner of that memory? I intend to explore the answer to that question and many more in today's psychoanalysis of Cloud Strife. Class, welcome to VGOLOGY, where we dissect the psychology behind our favorite video games. Please be advised that this video will contain spoilers for Final Fantasy VII, Crisis Core, and the Final Fantasy VII Remake, so if you try and avoid those, this is your chance to back out of the video. Okay, so today I want to do a deep dive on Cloud and answer the question, why did Cloud think he was Zack? Using psychological concepts from real life, I want to figure out what exactly is happening in the mind of Cloud. I'm sure many of you are already aware of Cloud's case of mistaken identity. However, for those who aren't aware, I'll summarize it very briefly. Much of Cloud's personality, experiences, and memories are actually not his own. They're actually the memories of his deceased friend, Zack. You might be wondering how something like this is even possible. Well, there's actually a lot happening here at the psychological level that would have caused this to occur. To understand what's happening, it's helpful to go back and explore Cloud's childhood. When Cloud was 9, he and his childhood crush, Tifa Lockhart, were involved in a serious accident. Tifa was crossing a bridge at Mount Nibel, where she took a misstep and fell off that bridge. Cloud tried to catch her but was unsuccessful, and he too fell off the bridge. Tifa was severely injured after this and in a coma for a week. Tifa's father blamed Cloud for this incident, and Cloud also blamed himself for being too weak and not being able to save her. This eventually led to Cloud wanting to join Soldier in order to become a hero and to impress Tifa. This glimpse into Cloud's insecurities and his feelings of being weak and powerless will play a big role later on, so keep this in mind. Eventually, Cloud left home in order to chase his goal of becoming a soldier. Unfortunately, Cloud didn't make the cut for the soldier program. Out of embarrassment, he enlisted as a Shinra grunt instead. This experience would only contribute to Cloud's insecurities. Fast forward to the Nibelheim incident, when Cloud finally returns home, but out of embarrassment of being a lowly grunt, he hides his identity from the residents of Nibelheim. During his stay at Nibelheim, Sephiroth loses his mind and massacres the town. This leads to the death of nearly the entire village, including Cloud's own mother. Tifa is also stabbed and severely injured during this incident. Cloud and Zack fight against Sephiroth and are both eventually knocked out cold. They are later taken by Professor Hojo to be used as test subjects. Professor Hojo conducted experiments on Cloud and Zack for 4 years, exposing them to Mako energy and injecting them with Genova cells. During these 4 years, Cloud is placed in a Mako tank. While in a Mako tank, Cloud appears to be in a state of deep sleep. This process appears to be very similar to deep sleep induced by anesthesia. Various research studies seem to suggest that the parts of the brain required to create explicit memories cease to function during anesthesia. Explicit memories are memories that are consciously recalled, such as the memory of your first kiss, or maybe remembering the answers to a test. Although it seems unlikely for explicit memories to form during anesthesia, it may be possible to form implicit or unconscious memories. These are memories that are not consciously recalled, but still affect your behavior, such as knowing not to touch a hot stove, for example. Although you may be able to vividly recall an experience of touching a hot stove when you were a child, you probably don't think about it every time you're around something hot. However, your mind is unconsciously aware of that learned experience. This interplay of explicit and implicit memories seem to fit Cloud's experience perfectly. I want you to take a look at this clip from Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, now I recall. My memory was mistaken. My boy, you weren't a soldier.
What Hojo's referring to here are the tests that he's conducted on Cloud. Although it's quite clear that Cloud doesn't have any conscious memory of these tests, he still reacts in a visceral manner, almost as if he's experiencing pain, as if his subconsciousness is remembering something. After 4 years of testing, Zack manages to break free from his Mako tank. Zack then goes on to free Cloud from his tank. After freeing Cloud, we see Cloud regain consciousness. However, Cloud now enters a catatonic state as a result of Mako poisoning. Mako poisoning is an in-universe condition that stems from overexposure to Mako energy. It can lead to catatonia, comas, and extreme cases, death. In Cloud's case, he seems to develop a catatonic condition called akinetic catatonia. Akinetic catatonia is a state where someone stares off blankly and won't respond when spoken to. In the rare instances where they do respond, it's usually only to repeat what someone has said. After breaking free, Cloud and Zack stay on the run from Shinra for almost a year. During this time, Cloud remains in a catatonic state. While they're on the road, Zack shares his stories and experiences with Cloud, telling him about his dreams and aspirations, such as wanting to become a mercenary. It is important to note the distinction here between Cloud's catatonic state and his previous state of deep sleep when he was in that Mako tank. As we discussed, conscious memories are unlikely to be formed during deep sleep. However, that is not the case for catatonia. Studies have shown that patients who are treated for catatonia reported being completely aware after they recovered. These patients were able to even recall their catatonic episode in great detail. This would suggest that memories are able to be formed during a catatonic episode. This tracks with Cloud being able to remember the stories and experiences Zack shared with him and eventually integrating them into his own made-up persona. If there's still any doubt that Cloud suffers from akinetic catatonia, I want to show you a scene from Zack's death in Crisis Core. While you watch this, I want you to keep in mind what I said earlier about catatonic people repeating what others say when they do respond.
For the both of us.
Both of us?
That's right. You're gonna.
As you just saw, Shinra eventually catches up with Zack and Cloud. Zack fights off Shinra in order to protect Cloud, which costs Zack his life. I think it's at this moment that Cloud's mind completely breaks. As we explored earlier, Cloud is already plagued with insecurities of being weak and blames himself for not being able to protect his loved ones. This time, not only was he unable to protect another loved one, he had to be protected because he was in a weakened state, which inadvertently caused the death of Zack. This event likely led to Cloud developing memory loss through a process called psychogenic amnesia. Psychogenic amnesia is the inability to remember past memories and is caused by severe psychological stress, such as traumatic events. The period of time that psychogenic amnesia can affect varies from only a few hours to a few decades. At this point, Cloud had already suffered traumatic event after traumatic event and was already near his boiling point. Zack's death would have been the catalyst that pushed him over the edge, causing his mind to completely break. This would lead to Cloud developing substantial memory gaps about the past several years of his life. While Cloud is in this mentally broken state, he continues to suffer from the effects of Mako poisoning. Mako is made up of the life stream, and as a result, exposure to Mako reproduces the memories of the souls that inhabit the life stream. As a result, a mentally broken Cloud is struggling to piece together which memories are his own. During this time, Cloud develops false memories through a process called misattribution. The misattribution of memory is a phenomenon where memories are created and distorted in some way. Misattribution can cause drastic changes to the perception of past experiences. This misattribution of memory is exactly what happened to the sexual assault victim in the example I gave at the start of this video. Jeremy Dean from Sideblock summarizes this phenomenon perfectly, stating, "When a memory is misattributed, some original true aspect of a memory becomes distorted through time, space, or circumstances." You see, false memories by misattribution are not entirely false, but some part of the original memory has become distorted. In the woman's case, the memory of the sexual assault was real. However, the memory of her attacker became warped. People who suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome, or PTSD, are more likely to develop false memories. This is theorized to be contributed to a process called associative activation. Associative activation refers to when the brain encodes information across a variety of nodes. When somebody tries to recall the information, the nodes being activated in that recall also activate the nodes associated with it, and may put together a flawed memory of an event. So put simply, when the victim tried to remember her sexual assault, related information, such as Dr. Thompson's face, was also recalled, leading to a false description of her assailant. A similar phenomenon is happening with Cloud. Remember that Cloud has formed memory gaps over the last several years due to psychogenic amnesia. As Zack's death was a huge source of trauma for him, it's not unreasonable to believe that he would have suppressed Zack's existence from his own memory. However, he still has some vague recollection of his memories of Zack. His incomplete memory, paired with the process of misattribution, led Cloud to imprint himself in place of Zack in his memories. In order to fill the gaps of his mind, Cloud began to think that he was Zack. Somehow, Cloud manages to make it to the train station in Sector 7, where he sits, broken and mindless. That is, until he is found by Tifa. When Tifa approaches him at the train station, Cloud becomes strangely lucid and regains his ability to respond. So, what exactly is going on here? How did Cloud suddenly regain his composure? You see, one of the causes of catatonia is believed to be a sudden reduction in neurotransmitters, specifically the neurotransmitters gamma-aminobutyric acid, or GABA, and dopamine. This is why treatments of catatonia involve correcting the chemical imbalance of the brain. So far, there are only 2 medically accepted treatments of catatonia. The first is electroconvulsive therapy, or ECT. ECT involves a machine delivering a shock to the brain in order to induce a seizure. The seizure is believed to reset the brain and correct any chemical imbalances. The second method is through the use of medication, most commonly benzodiazepines, which increases the GABA in the brain. It is theorized that because of the way the brain is wired, treating the low GABA activity will also help regulate the dopamine imbalances. So how does all of this relate to Cloud and Tifa? Well, when in the presence of someone you have strong romantic feelings for, the brain becomes flooded with dopamine. We already know that Cloud has strong feelings for Tifa and hasn't seen her in many years. This encounter would have driven Cloud's dopamine levels to spike through the roof, possibly correcting the previous imbalance, causing his catatonic state. Sadly, this encounter was a little too late, and Cloud's mind was already too far gone. So, let's recap. In summary, Mako poisoning caused Cloud to enter a catatonic state. Various traumatic events in Cloud's life, culminating with Zack's death, then triggered Cloud to develop psychogenic amnesia. Cloud filled in the gaps of his memory by misattributing Zack's experiences as his own. After meeting Tifa, Cloud was able to break free from his catatonic state, but at that point, his mind had already been warped into believing that he was Zack Fair. Well, that's my diagnosis. And remember to smash that like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe if you want more psychological breakdowns of our favorite games. Thanks for checking out VGOLOGY. Class dismissed.